Yo, what's up? My name is HOWL, and today I'll be talking about Finality by Sleepnet again. Since I found out that my theory about wavefolding is actually false, and I have some logical explanations for why it is false. But with those logical explanations, I've also found what it really is that Nik Roos does to his side channel to keep it that tight and super contained. So let's dive into it. We'll start by listening to Finality, then we'll dive into the side signal and what it sounds like and why wavefolding was actually a wrong theory. Then we'll dive into an unreleased track of mine and apply both techniques, both wavefolding and this new method that I found out. And yeah, let's just go from there. So let's listen to Finality and refresh on what it sounds like. Yeah, so still super sick production. I really like this track. So let's dive into the side signal and see what's going on. As you can hear, like I pointed out in my last video, you can hear some clippy / distorting artifacts. And now that I know what it is, it's super obvious to me, but I'll start by pointing out why wavefolding isn't actually the technique Nik Roos uses to achieve this sound. Let's start off by defining what wavefolding does and looking at this printed out side signal. Basically, when wavefolding reaches 0 dB, it folds back into itself, which results in a sort of flat audio file, if you would print it out like this. Which obviously isn't the case, since this audio file of the side signal is very dynamic and still has peaks. So that doesn't make any sense, which I could have known from the start. But something you'll notice when you zoom into these audio files, both the side signal and the original track, is you'll see these cutouts happening in the side signal, which pointed me into the direction of ring modulation, because that is a very characteristic trait that that audio effect has. So what I want to do now is listen to my unreleased track Terminal and try and figure out what that sounds like with wavefolding and with this new method with ring modulation. So let's listen to Terminal first and then we'll get into it. So yeah, that's a preview of my track Terminal, and let's get into wavefolding first. I actually bounced out a version with wavefolding on the side signal, so we can listen to it. Now, if we compare that to Sleepnet's Finality, it doesn't sound half as crispy as his, nor dynamic. Because as you can see, this is basically a flat audio file with some exceptions at the end. But it is basically a flat audio file because it folded in on itself, in comparison to Sleepnet's dynamic side signal. Now, after some experiments with ring modulation, I've come to this result with my own track. Now let's compare it to the wavefolding signal. As you can hear, that's a very big difference. So let's try and set this up on my original track here. It's actually pretty easy. It's even easier than the wavefolding technique, honestly. So to set up this chain, you'll need an audio effect rack, and you're gonna want to take a utility, open the chain menu, call one mid, call one side. The next thing you'll want to do is take this width knob in the utility, right click it and turn it to mid side mode. Turn one to mid and turn one to side according to which one is which. And then we can basically alter or add effects to either the mid or the side signal separately. The next thing we'll grab is the kilohertz ring modulator, which is free on their website. I'll leave a link in the description. We want to go to this window and select the track we're working on, which in my case is unreleased track. And then we want to grab the post effects from the mid chain. So what this will do is it will take the signal after this utility and use it as a sidechain input in the ring modulator. Now, when we open the ring modulator, we want to select input 3/4 as the modulator and then turn up the bias entirely. Now, when we listen to this, I'll grab the Brainworks meter again so we can listen to the side signal in mono. This is what the side signal sounds like. Now let's compare this to Sleepnet. Obviously his mix is a little different than mine, but it has the same effect. And now if we play the full track with this effect in action, you won't actually hear this effect taking place. Now without this effect, so the reason why this works is essentially what is happening is the mid signal is enforcing sample accurate ducking on the side signal based on math. So I just printed out the mid and the side signal so I can make a visual. Basically, whenever the mid signal crosses a 0-point crossing, the side signal gets a little bit of room to breathe. And this happens on a very, very small scale. As you can see, it's literally sample based. And that's why the effect sounds so drastic as well, because it's happening on such a small scale that it sounds clipped or distorted while it's actually just being ring modulated. So the reason Sleepnet would want to do something like this is basically to let the side signal adapt to the mid signal, only playing in those inaudible gaps on a sample-based interval. And when saying inaudible, I think this technique is more so used as a psychological, psychoacoustic effect or an artistic choice, more than something you'd actually point out in a track. Although I do have to say that finality does benefit from this effect, I think, because the main bass in the actual track is not leaving a lot of room for the sides to sit through, so it sounds very crisp and very tight. So what can we take away from this? Basically, try this method out on a track that you think needs it. I don't think it's something you have to apply to every track, but it is an interesting approach and an interesting choice to have seen made by one of the greats. So do with that information what you will. Again, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the future in another video. Peace.